I am the Pumpkin King. Hello, everybody. Happy Halloween. Just got done with our Halloween celebrations and everything. Had everybody, had all the kids come to the door, and got to see a lot of interesting costumes and everybody. If you can't tell, I'm supposed to be Jack Skellington. Was kind of me. We kind of cobbled a few things together, and so I kind of did it this way with the eyes up there and kind of did some stuff around the mouth down here to kind of finalize everything. I've got the bow tie, and so next year I think I might try and see if I can find a jacket. Might do a little something different here, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I enjoyed it for this year. This was a good. See, it's even got the arms with the gloves and everything, and so it was a lot of fun to go to have some fun with this year. So anyhow, today what I'd like to discuss is I just got done. I've gone through it about 2 or 3 times, and I just got done rewatching A Woman Who Fell to Earth and took some notes on it. And because I was dressed up today, I didn't want to waste this opportunity. Thought I'd go ahead and do this in costume and have a little bit of fun with it today. So, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I actually ended up with 13 items that I'm going to kind of go through here. I've already put one out in the new format that I'm doing with some episodes from Series 1 that I'm doing like a little bit of a 5 item list. And on this one, I've got 13 items that I came across seem to fit for the 13th Doctor. Just general categories, some little items that I noticed while I was going through it. So I'm going to kind of run down my list and go through that with you, and then I'll go ahead and put this out on YouTube. And if you've got any suggestions, any questions, anything you'd like to discuss, I'm more than up to that. I'll leave comments open on YouTube for anything that you want to talk about. This was the first episode for the brand new Doctor, brand new series, and so I kind of wanted to go through this a little bit and discuss it with you. I'm going to do for the 13th Doctor's first series, Series 11. I'm going to go through each individual episode on its own and put out a video discussing each episode, as opposed to what I'm doing with the earlier series. Because this series is so new and because it's current right now, I'm going to try and get this caught up. So hopefully over the next week, I'll be able to get all the episodes up till now done, and then over the next few weeks I can put like episode 5. Hopefully I can get that out within the first couple of days of next week, and so on and so forth for the rest of the series. So, but I wanted to start with this one, get this one out, try and get this one out tonight, so that I can get started on this and discuss it with you guys a little bit. To start with, obviously this was a brand new scope. Everything was new for this. We have a new showrunner, we have a new ensemble cast, and obviously we have a new musical director as well. And we've got a bunch of new writers for this series as well. So it's interesting to see those dynamics play out between the new folk that are coming into the series. The ensemble cast, we've obviously got a new Doctor with the 11th Doctor, who is just going through kind of a regeneration episode here. We have Yasmin, we have Ryan, we have Graham, and we have Grace. Obviously, Ryan is who we start out with. That's the first person we see. This episode, in a lot of ways, was centered in parts around Ryan and around his dyspraxia, disability, the coordination disability, and how that affects him in different areas and different ways in his life. Obviously, just to start out with, we see him trying to ride a bike with Graham and Grace, who we find out are his nan and his step grandfather. And so we get an introduction to those three fairly early, and then he ends up throwing the bike over the edge of the cliff, which ultimately leads him to finding in the dark down there the squares all of a sudden that come into play. And that's where we really kind of start the the story of the episode, or the key feature of the episode, which is the the alien coming to Earth and what he's doing on Earth. And ultimately, what we find out is, in terms of touching those squares, what he did was he gave, apparently, permission for the Stenza to come to Earth, and all of a sudden, that this space capsule kind of looks like an upside down mushroom, or I'm trying to think, an onion almost, the shape of an onion, ends up appearing right out of nowhere. And he touches it, and it's obviously freezing at that point. So then he ends up calling. That's an odd one. We find out Yaz is a police officer, specifically a traffic officer. Fairly early on, she's not happy with that. She wants something a little different. And when she tells her boss about that, what she gets is this call that Ryan had put in about the item that had appeared next to him. And so Yaz comes out, and then we find out that Yaz and Ryan know each other from primer school, I think is what they call it there. And so, but then Yaz sees the item as well. Well, she thinks Ryan's playing a joke on her and has dumped it there. And then Ryan tells her to touch it, and that's when they find out that it's freezing. But what we found out, the next piece that came about, was we all of a sudden got to see the first of the alien creatures. Graham and Grace are on a train back to where they live, from talking, showing Ryan and talking to him a little bit out where he lives, in Sheffield. And so they're on their way back, but all of a sudden the train gets into a wreck because of the first of the alien creatures. Now the first one we found, we didn't know, but the first one ends up being in that onion-shaped spacecraft. But the first alien creature that we actually get to see is this ball of electric energy and all kinds of tentacles, I guess, for the lack of a better term. And so it all of a sudden comes, the train crashes because it comes through the front portion of the train. And then all of a sudden it's tracking. And once it starts tracking, what we find out is that it's tracking something on the train, but we didn't know for sure that it was tracking when we started this. And so when it does that, it comes on the train, and had everybody is, once the train crashes, Grace contacts Ryan, and since Ryan and Yaz are already together, Yaz goes ahead and goes to the train crash, and then the four of them are together when they see this creature crash through, with all the tentacles and everything. And that's when the creature is there, checking them out, trying to track whatever it's tracking. All of a sudden, the doctor comes crashing through the roof of the train. Now, last we had seen her in Twice Upon a Time was she had fallen out of the TARDIS because the TARDIS had thrown her out. So all of a sudden, the doctor has now appeared, and so we're ready to start working with her in terms of this different dynamic that she has. And all of a sudden, she just comes crashing through, is still trying to remember who she is. There's still a realization there for what she's trying to figure out, and she uses we basically have this whole episode where she spends the episode trying to do that. Now, that's not very much different from what we saw of David Tennant, what we saw of Matt Smith, or what we saw Peter Capaldi, all in their first episodes, because essentially they all use their first episodes to do the same type of thing. Essentially set who they were. And so it become kind of a familiar theme for us in terms of the regenerations that have taken place since Doctor Who came back in 2005. And so it's not that much of a difference, but she figures it out. She figures that realization comes to her, and she figures it out as she goes along. It's interesting, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. but she uses the, well, actually, no, I take that back. I consolidated this, so I'm going to talk about it now. It was interesting. She used her nose to track when she was going to pass out. All of a sudden, she becomes very tired, and so it that realization all of a sudden that she's going to need rest because her body is still regenerating, it's still reforming itself. And so I thought that was an interesting way of utilizing the nose. And we've heard other doctors utilize different parts of their body as well. So that's probably not out of the realm of normalcy for what the doctor does. I'm down to number 5 at this point because I'm kind of going through this in pieces, and there's going to be some of these where I'm going to point out some pieces within this that will be running aspects of the whole show, the whole episode, as opposed to specific pieces in the episode. So far, I've kind of run down aspects of the episode up till now, but there was something in me that at this point, there were a couple pieces with the mood music in here that I wrote down music specifically in my notes at this point in the episode, but I want to talk about it as a whole. The music, it's a very different style. It doesn't have the, I don't want to say bombastic, because I think that's too overblown in terms of what Murray Gold's music was. But Segun Akinola, his music is a lot more mood setting. It's much more understated. But because of that, you also notice you notice the mood, the setting of the mood very much when it does come in. I don't know how to put it any better than that. It's just it's much more understated, but does a very effective job of setting the mood. They use a lot more of solo and ensemble pieces. You can tell that, as opposed to this overarching grand orchestra movement that Murray Gold used to use a lot of times. And so I thought it was very, very nicely done in terms of this episode. And since I've seen up through episode 4 at this point, I can say I think this carries forward through the series, and it's amazing what he's been able to do, considering that Murray Gold seemed to be, at least from what I was able to tell, a fan favorite of the Doctor Who crowd, and was always very well received. It was just interesting to see how a new composer was going to be received in terms of doing this music. But from what I've heard from the reviews that I've heard already about different episodes in this series, I think Segun Akinola, and I hope I'm saying that right. I hope I'm not butchering that all to pieces, but I believe everything that I've heard from others would indicate that Akinola is being very well received by the audience in terms of the job that he's done. The ending sequence I thought was very reminiscent. I mean, it's the First Doctor's BBC Radiophonic Workshop style of Doctor Who theme, with just a couple little twists to it. But I thought it was amazing. Apparently, he was able to sample that. Akinola was able to sample the original First Doctor's theme from BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and I want to make sure that I give credit to the people that created that. That was done by Ron Grainer and Delta Derbyshire. Those were the two that worked together to create that for BBC Radiophonic Workshop. But I thought there were a lot of pieces. He was able to apparently to sample that, and then also able to add some of his own little twist to it. But I loved it. I loved the visuals, the colors, and that went along with that in the closing credits. And so I thought that whole piece was amazing. I noticed all of a sudden we have running again, and Graham was really the one to notice it, because he said, after they had confronted the monster, after the doctor had woken up, after they had gone and done their research, and Graham was the one that got it because one of his bus driver friends was able to locate what they were looking for, but they were able to find the place where the alien was. It was well, I guess I shouldn't say that. It was interesting how they tracked him down, but essentially they tracked the alien down, and Doctor confronts the alien, and the alien starts to run away from them. And all of a sudden the Doctor starts running towards the alien along with a couple others, and Graham said, "Why are you running towards the alien?" And then all of a sudden everybody else is running towards it, and Graham's like, "Now you're all running towards the alien," and then he ends up running after him. But I always thought it set the key that the running is still there. The running aspect of the Doctor that we've all loved, that is fluent throughout all of the Doctor's tenures, is still there. It's always a fun aspect of what the Doctor does and who the Doctor is, and so I was pleasantly. It was a pleasant throwback once that occurred again. So, the alien, we finally meet the alien, Tim Shaw. That was a wonderful little play between the Doctor and the alien. We find out that the Sten's warrior race, and it's incredible how many warrior races we truly have throughout the Doctor Who universe. It really is. It's just really crazy how many races end up being warrior races like this. Such as excuse me. Starting to lose a little bit there. Such as the Centaurans, and I mean, you have the Centaurans, you have the Cybermen, you have the Daleks, you have, you can just go on and on and on down the list about the different warrior races that are out there. I thought the teeth, the gruesomeness of the face, combined with the teeth, taking a tooth and wearing it on your face, I thought that was a little gruesome, a little disgusting, but it was an interesting way to make the Stenza a little bit more scary, a little bit crazier in terms of what they do. And so it's interesting to find out that this was a hunt, that Tim Shaw was actually hunting someone here on Earth, and we find out that it's Carl who was originally on the train with them, and that was essentially why. We also find out at this point that Shaw had actually sent this other creature who was like a combo cyber tech type creature, had actually sent that to track Carl for him when he wasn't supposed to. He was actually cheating by doing that. But then he gets that information, is able to do a short teleport, and all of a sudden he's gone. We also had the Sonic creation that ends up at this point, utilizing. I thought it was interesting that she utilized crystals from the alien spaceship, along with it's amazing how much spoons become a recurring theme within Doctor Who, and I go back to the 12th Doctor using the spoon to duel with in the Robin Hood episode, but I also know like the 7th Doctor and other classic Doctors use spoons at different points in time as well, and so I thought that was an interesting callback to spoons usage in Doctor Who. It was amazing her creative ability, using being able to melt down the spoons, and then being able to use that steel to craft this sonic screwdriver that she could then use to try and help them through the situation that they were in. I thought the sonic creation, it was one of the, actually, I thought one of the better moments in terms of a sonic screwdriver all of a sudden coming about. The other one that was interesting was, I can harken back to the 12th Doctor, when 12th Doctor finally got his own true sonic screwdriver with the kind of TARDIS door look to the end crystal. That essentially flying into his hand from the TARDIS, after Clara's exit. I thought that to me was another fun one. But the creation of this was just amazing. The ability that she is a creative force in that respect, I thought was just amazing to see. I like I love. I didn't just like it. I love the commentary about regeneration, how painful it is. She indicates that there's a moment that you're about to die, and your cells are burning. She also goes into the idea of still shaping herself away from what she used to be towards what she's going to become. She also said that she knew that she would get through it, because she also makes this comment, and it's, that piece, that painful piece, talking about that. I mean, we harken back to when David Tennant, when the 10th Doctor was about to regenerate, and talks to Wilf about what regeneration is, about how it's a new man walking away. And this is another piece to it. And the 13th Doctor essentially gives us the same information, the same concept that the 10th Doctor did back then. I do love the idea that she comes around and says that she knows that she'll get through it, because she says that they were in need, and she said, if there's one thing I know, it's that if people need help, I never refuse. And I thought that was interesting. Although when you look back on it, I thought that was an interesting. There was an interesting irony with that, and then what happened with the 11th Doctor, between when he loses Amy and Rory, and the time that he finds that he sees Clara, but he sees Clara in her Victorian days as opposed to the modern Clara that we come to know. And all of a sudden he has basically removed himself from the universe. He doesn't want to help anymore, and he does start refusing. And that's what I found interesting in terms of that dichotomy, and it requires somebody very special to pull him back in. Whereas she's the type, she said, I'm never going to refuse people if they're asking for help. All right, we're getting into the home stretch here. So we get to the crane site. After they're able to locate it, she gets the information. She finds out from the unit right before Tim Shaw gets there. They're able to find that other creature. They're able to find out that it's Carl. They're able to find out the hunt is going on. And that's when they go to the crane site. That's when they go to find Carl. Go to the crane site. She instills, and it's the same concept that we saw before, to some degree to their detriment, but it's the same concept we saw before, that the Doctor always instills bravery in others. You see it with Yaz, you see it with Ryan, you see it with Grace especially. Graham is kind of pulled into this reluctantly, although we find out later in some of the later episodes that he starts to turn that around a little bit. But he's always kind of the thoughtful one. But in this particular one, he seems to be pulled through it a lot, actually rather reluctantly. But we get to the crane site. They all show resolve, in this respect. But the doctor shows that resolve first, keeps telling them that I will get you through this. We will get through this together. We will get through the problem that we're facing together. It's that process, that moment, that working through all of this, that having to work through the issue, trying to figure out what she needed to do here and here and here, that finally gets her to a realization of, and the discovery of who she is. And we find that out in just a little bit, but at this is that point up on the crane where she finally has that I know who I am speech. When she's talking to Sim Shaw about about what she's going to do with his return, with his little item that will allow him to return to his planet. When she's talking to him about that, and she goes through this whole thing, you can see that confidence, because all of a sudden she knows, and it's developed over the process of the episode, but at that point she has finally gotten to the realization, she has gotten the full realization at that point of who she is and where she is headed. And so that's the point where we see that, she tells him, I'm glad you asked who I am again, because at this point I know I am the doctor. And and at that point she knows that she's going to be able to stop him. She knows what she's going to do. Well, she knows partly she knows what she's already done. And so that's when we get the realization that she tricked Simshaw in terms of taking the DNA bombs that his creature had placed in everyone and put them back in the creature. And all of a sudden, when he did a transference from the creature for the information, he got a full transference. All those DNA bombs went in Simshaw at that point, and all of a sudden, once he sets those bombs off, they go off in him. And so you can kind of see him starting to melt and everything. You see the liquid goo coming off of him and all that. I did find it interesting that she criticizes Carl for knocking Simshaw off the crane, as though he didn't have the capability to do that. I thought that was, I haven't gotten that sense out of the Doctor very often in the episodes I've seen so far, but it was just a touch of that old arrogance that really, really annoys me about the Doctor at times. It's part of the reason that the Fourth Doctor and the 10th Doctor are pretty low on my list of Doctors. It's because there is a certain level of arrogance that was allowed to build in them by the showrunners and the directors and the writers at those points in time. I just got really uncomfortable with, because that's not my sense of who the Doctor should be or who the Doctor is. And so I thought that to me just niggled at me a little bit, in terms of it just seemed out of character compared to the rest of the stuff. Although there are times in later episodes about weapons and things like that where she gets very direct about some of that stuff. So, but that one just seemed almost smacked of arrogance. I can put the DNA bombs in him to cause him to start to melt, but how dare you knock him off of the crane, even though you're the one he was trying to kidnap and take away, and you'd have to spend your life in this stasis where you wouldn't even know what was going on. So I thought that was a little bit interesting in terms of the way they did that. I thought it was interesting how the writer, how Chris Chibnall used Grace's death to have a sense of renewal, and a sense of renewal of purpose in Ryan, in terms of the bike, in terms of what he was going to try and do, how he wanted to do it for her. I thought we went from renewal of purpose because of her death. We went to disappointment in Ryan's father because he didn't show up like he's done so many times in Ryan's life, apparently. And then we went to the grief of both Ryan and Graham. We saw, Graham talking about how it should have been him because Grace was a better person than he could ever be. And I thought it was interesting. I thought it was also interesting how they were able to tie that into the fact that Graham had cancer, how he and Grace met, and then all of a sudden we have a great lesson from the doctor about how to deal with grief, how to deal with the loss of somebody. The fact that she carries them with her, so that even though they're gone from the world, they're still with her. She carries them, those memories, those ideas of who they are, with her. So she's never without them, even though they're gone from the world. And then we kind of make some quick moves here at the end. She wants to get back to finding the TARDIS. And then the last piece that I want to deal with is kind of the all of a sudden we get the new outfit, and it's always interesting to see how they come up with the new outfit for the particular Doctor. Because we've got different aspects of it. Like, I can remember back to the Fifth Doctor picking out his cricket outfit from a wardrobe within the TARDIS. We had the 10th Doctor again finding his stuff from the wardrobe in the TARDIS. The 11th Doctor gets his suit from the hospital that Rory works at, where he was walking through right before he confronts the alien eye spaceship thing. I'm trying to think. The 12th Doctor comes out of the TARDIS just with that outfit on. That's the outfit that he ended up with, apparently, again out of the wardrobe that's in the TARDIS. It's just different aspects. So in this one, they go to the shop. Since she doesn't have her TARDIS, she decides to go to the shop and get it. And all of a sudden, you see her throwing clothes out. No. It was also interesting that no pockets, empty pockets. She had the old Doctor's coat, the 12th Doctor's coat didn't have anything in it. Those pockets were empty as well. And so it's interesting what she's going to have in those pockets and how those pockets are going to work later on. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. And then that was kind of the last piece of that, combined with the music right at the end, I think were the last pieces of discovery for this episode. I did find it interesting that they decided to end her first episode on kind of a stark cliffhanger, where they're trying to find the TARDIS. She uses the technology of the Stenza to try and help locate the TARDIS. I thought it was interesting. She said it had 139 layers and 7 of them don't make sense. Interesting. But I thought that concept was interesting, that she utilized alien technology to be able to try and get where she needed to be. But what she didn't anticipate, what she didn't expect, was pulling the 3 of them in with her when she made the jump. And then all of a sudden they're in space, and we'll find out in the next episode why they kind of ended up where they did. But I thought it was interesting that they chose to end it on that kind of cliffhanger. And then we have the wonderful purple nebulous black blob shifting of the time vortex, along with the wonderful revamped version of the radiophonic workshop Doctor Who theme. And so I thought that was wonderful. I thought it was a great episode. I thought it was very fitting for a first episode. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought, there were some pieces that could have flowed better. There were a few things that could have been done better. But overall, I thought they had a lot of good pieces in there. I'm going to give each one of this in Series 11, I'm going to give each one a 1 to 10 rating. And I would rate this one, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 9. I thought it was that good. I thought it was very good for an opening for an opening act for Jodie Whitaker, and I think all 4 of the key characters in terms of the ensemble, I thought all did very well. We got a good intro to all of them, and so we from here on we'll work towards getting to know each other a little better. I actually think Graham stole the show a little bit here, and I think through the run of 4 that I've seen so far, I think Graham has really been. Bradley Walsh has done a fantastic job as Graham, and it actually stole the show a little bit. I think he and Jodie have been the strongest points so far, but I think they've all been good. But I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 9. And with that, it's getting a little late in the evening. I've got a couple kids that I need to get to bed or make sure that they're headed that way. And so I want to thank you all for spending a little bit of time with me. I think we're probably running at about a half hour at this point. So I want to thank you all for spending about 35 minutes with us tonight. If you liked what you saw here, would like to see some more content like this, I would appreciate it if you would give me a like. If you liked it, please give me a like, hit the like button. If you like the content, if you want to see more stuff that I'm going to be creating here in the future, please hit that subscribe button and also hit the little bell for the notifications when it comes up. If you've got any comments, please leave them down below. I would love to hear whatever you thought about the first episode. Any comments about my thoughts here today? Anything you want to talk to me about, I would love to hear about. With that being said, I want to thank you all, and I would like to say, as I'm dressed, who I'm dressed as, I would like to finish by saying this: I am the Pumpkin King. Have a great evening, everybody, and happy Halloween. Bye-bye.